My name is Celeste Morrison and I'm 34 years old. What started as a simple family dinner ordering takeout became the moment I discovered my entire family had been systematically excluding my children for years. As I watched my sister's kids excitedly choose from the menu, while mine sat there invisible, waiting to be asked what they wanted, I realized this wasn't just an oversight. The favoritism, the deliberate snubs, the coordinated effort to make my children feel like outsiders in their own family. It was all intentional. That night changed everything, and what I did next exposed a web of lies that tore our family apart forever. Before we dive into this family drama that'll make your blood boil, let me ask, where are you watching from today? If you've ever felt like the black sheep in your family, hit that like button because this story is going to resonate hard. And trust me, you'll want to subscribe and ring that notification bell because the revenge I served was absolutely legendary. Now let's get into this mess. Growing up, I always knew something was off about how my family treated me compared to my sister Diana. She was the golden child, 3 years younger blonde where I was brunette, outgoing where I was more reserved. But I thought things would change when we both became mothers. How naive I was. Diana had 2 kids, Madison 8 and Tyler 6. Perfect little angels according to my parents. My twins Iris and Jasper were 7 years old and just as wonderful, but you'd never know it from how they were treated. Every family gathering was the same routine. Madison and Tyler got the spotlight while my kids were afterthoughts. It started small. Birthday parties where my kids' dietary restrictions were forgotten so they couldn't eat the cake. Christmas mornings where Madison and Tyler got elaborate gifts, while Iris and Jasper received generic toys clearly bought last minute. Family photos where my children were consistently positioned at the edges or behind others, sometimes cut out entirely when my mother shared them on social media. The worst part was watching my children internalize this treatment. Iris, my sensitive little girl, started asking why Grandma never remembered her favorite color was purple, not pink like Madison's. Jasper began acting out at school, his teacher noting he seemed to struggle with feelings of inadequacy. They were learning that their worth was measured against their cousins, and they were always coming up short. My husband Marcus noticed it too, but he's more diplomatic than I am. Maybe they don't realize they're doing it, he'd say. Maybe we should just focus on our own family. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was deliberate. The way conversations stopped when I entered rooms. The group text messages I was mysteriously left out of. The family trips planned without consulting our schedule. I tried addressing it directly with my mother once. Mom, I feel like Iris and Jasper get treated differently than Diana's kids. She looked at me with such genuine confusion that I almost believed her innocent act. Oh, honey, you're being too sensitive. We love all our grandchildren equally. But loving equally and treating equally were clearly two different things in her mind. Diana was worse. She'd make passive-aggressive comments about my parenting disguised as concern. It's so hard when kids don't have natural social skills like Madison and Tyler, she'd say, watching my children struggle to integrate into family activities they'd been subtly excluded from planning. Maybe Iris would be more confident if she lost some weight. Madison's dance classes have really helped her posture. The gaslighting was masterful. Every time I brought up an incident, I was told I was overthinking or creating drama. When I pointed out that my kids weren't included in the cousins group chat Diana had set up, she claimed it was because they were too young for phones, despite Iris and Jasper being only a year younger than Madison. My father was perhaps the most frustrating because his favoritism came wrapped in what seemed like genuine affection. He'd play with all the kids, but somehow Madison always got the prime spot on his lap for story time. Tyler always got picked first for games. When he took the kids fishing, there were always technical reasons why mine couldn't come. The boat was too small, the weather was uncertain, they didn't have the right gear. The financial inequality was staggering too. Diana's kids had college funds that were regularly mentioned and celebrated. My children had, well, whatever Marcus and I could scrape together. When I asked my parents about helping with Iris and Jasper's education, suddenly money was tight, the market was uncertain, they needed to be practical about their spending. Extended family followed suit. Aunts and uncles who fawned over Madison and Tyler barely acknowledged my children's existence. Holiday cards featured Diana's family prominently, while mine got generic group shots. Social media posts about the grandkids somehow only included 2 of the 4 actual grandchildren. But that night, that takeout night, was when everything crystallized into perfect, horrible clarity. It was a typical Sunday evening at my parents' house. These family dinners had become routine, though I was starting to dread them. Diana and her kids were already there when we arrived, Madison and Tyler commandeering the living room TV while my kids quietly found spots on the floor. "We should order Chinese," my mother announced. "The kids love it and I don't feel like cooking." This was becoming standard. My mother, who used to pride herself on home-cooked meals, now defaulted to takeout whenever we visited. I suspected it was because she didn't want to accommodate my kids' food allergies. Dad pulled out his phone to browse menus, while Mom gathered everyone around the kitchen island. "Okay," she said brightly, "what does everyone want?" But her eyes went immediately to Madison and Tyler. "I want sweet and sour chicken," Madison piped up. "Orange chicken for me," Tyler added. "Perfect," Mom beamed, writing it down. "Diana, what about you?" As they discussed adult preferences, I noticed Iris and Jasper standing there waiting patiently for their turn. They'd been through this routine before. "Wait quietly, don't interrupt the grown-ups, your turn will come." Except their turn never seemed to come. The conversation moved to sides and appetizers. Spring rolls for Madison, fried rice for Tyler. Still nothing for my children, who were now shifting uncomfortably, glancing between each other with that look kids get when they know something's wrong but can't articulate what. "Should we get some extra egg rolls?" Diana suggested. "Great idea," Dad agreed. "Madison and Tyler love those." I waited. Surely someone would ask about Iris and Jasper. Any second now, Mom would turn to them with that same bright smile and ask what they wanted. Any second. But the conversation moved on to logistics. How long delivery would take, whether they had enough cash if they should order dessert. My children stood there invisible. "What about Iris and Jasper?" I finally said, my voice tighter than I intended. The reaction was immediate and telling. Mom looked genuinely startled, as if she'd forgotten they were there. Dad glanced up from his phone with mild confusion. Diana's expression flickered between annoyance and something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Oh, Mom recovered quickly. Of course, what do you 2 want?" But it was too late. I'd seen it, that moment of genuine surprise that other children existed in this equation. Iris's face had crumpled slightly before she composed herself, and Jasper was staring at his shoes, shoulders hunched. "They like chicken and broccoli," I said flatly when my kids didn't respond immediately. They were too hurt to speak up for themselves. Perfect Mom's voice was overly bright, now compensating. "1 chicken and broccoli," but I was done pretending this was normal. Done making excuses for behavior that was clearly intentional. Done protecting everyone's feelings except my children's. "You know what?" I said, standing up. "We actually have plans tonight." "Kids, get your coats." But Aunt Celeste Madison protested. "We were going to play after dinner." The irony wasn't lost on me that Madison was more upset about our leaving than any adult in the room. "Sorry, sweetie. Maybe next time." I was already herding Iris and Jasper toward the door. "Celeste, don't be ridiculous," Diana said. "We just ordered food. For your kids, not mine." "That's not true," Mom just asked them, after I pointed it out. I turned to face the room. After they stood there waiting patiently while you all discussed Madison and Tyler's preferences in detail, the silence that followed was deafening. No one denied it because they couldn't. It had happened exactly as I described, and we all knew it. "You're overreacting," my father said finally. And there it was, the same dismissive phrase I'd heard my entire life whenever I dared to point out unfair treatment. Am I? I asked. Iris Jasper, how often does Grandma ask what you want for dinner first? The question hung in the air. My children looked between the adults, understanding instinctively that their honest answer would cause problems. It's okay, I said gently. You can tell the truth. Never, Jasper whispered. One word. That's all it took to shatter the carefully constructed fiction that everyone was treated equally in this family. The drive home was quiet except for the sound of Iris sniffling in the back seat. Marcus reached over and squeezed my hand as I white-knuckled the steering wheel, fury and heartbreak warring in my chest. When we got home, I sent the kids to their room to play while the adults had what I knew would be a difficult conversation. I can't do this anymore, I told Marcus. I can't keep subjecting our children to this treatment. I know, he said quietly. I've been seeing it more clearly lately, too. Tonight was pretty blatant. That's when my phone started buzzing. First my mother, then Diana, then my father, all calling to talk through this misunderstanding. I let them go to voicemail, but the texts started immediately. Diana, you're being dramatic. Mom just forgot for a second. Mom, please don't keep the children away over something so silly. Dad, come back. We ordered extra food anyway. But it was my mother's follow-up text that really set me off. Diana says, you've been struggling lately. Maybe you should talk to someone about these paranoid thoughts. Paranoid thoughts. As if years of documented favoritism were a figment of my imagination. As if my children's hurt feelings were symptoms of my mental instability rather than natural responses to unfair treatment. I screenshot that message and sent it to Marcus. His response was immediate. What the actual hell? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying not just the evening's events but years of similar incidents. The pattern was undeniable once you really looked at it. So I started documenting everything I could remember, creating a detailed timeline of favoritism and exclusion. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to start recording our family interactions. It sounds dramatic, I know, but I needed proof. Not for legal reasons. This wasn't that kind of abuse. But for my own sanity and maybe to show Marcus and the kids that I wasn't imagining things. Every family gathering, every phone call, every interaction where patterns might emerge, I would document. The first opportunity came that Wednesday when my mother called. She was using her sweetest voice, the one that had convinced me to forgive countless slights over the years. Celeste, honey, I've been thinking about Sunday night. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I put her on speaker and started recording. What kind of misunderstanding? Well, you know how busy these family dinners can be. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of everyone's needs. But you have to know that Grandpa and I love Iris and Jasper just as much as Madison and Tyler. Then why don't you treat them the same way we do? I mean, we try to. But Diana's children are just easier sometimes. They speak up more. They're more assertive about what they want. There it was. Victim blaming disguised as an explanation. My children were excluded because they weren't pushy enough to demand attention. Mom, Iris, and Jasper were standing right there waiting to be asked. They're polite kids who wait their turn instead of interrupting adults. I know, sweetheart, and that's wonderful. Maybe they just need to learn to be more vocal about their needs. The conversation continued for 20 minutes, my mother alternating between gaslighting and blame shifting. But she also said something interesting. Diana thinks you might be going through some kind of phase. She's worried about you. After we hung up, I immediately called Diana. Oh, good, she said without preamble. Mom said she talked to you. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. Reasonable about what exactly? About not creating unnecessary drama over nothing. Look, I get it. You want your kids to feel special. But you can't expect the whole family to walk on eggshells just because Iris and Jasper are more sensitive than most children. I was recording this too, and Diana's casual cruelty was breathtaking. More sensitive. They're 7 years old, Diana. They're exactly as sensitive as they should be when they're being excluded by their own family. Excluded, God Celeste, you're so dramatic. Nobody's excluding anyone. Madison and Tyler just have stronger personalities. They take initiative. Maybe if you encouraged Iris and Jasper to speak up more instead of babying them. Stop! I couldn't listen to another word. Just stop talking. See, this is what mom means. You get so defensive whenever anyone tries to give you advice about parenting. Maybe if you listened, instead of assuming everyone's out to get you, I hung up. The recordings were revealing, but what came next was the real bombshell. That evening, I got a call from my cousin Sarah, my father's niece who lived across the country. We weren't particularly close, but she'd always been kind to my kids during the rare occasions we saw each other. "Hey Celeste," she said, sounding uncomfortable. "I need to tell you something, and I'm not sure how you're going to take it." My stomach dropped. "What is it? I was on a group video call with your mom and some other relatives last week. I thought you should know. They were talking about your family." The pause that followed felt endless. What were they saying? They were discussing Christmas plans, and your mom was explaining why they decided to keep celebrations smaller this year. She said that you and Marcus have been difficult lately, and that your kids require too much special attention because of their allergies and behavioral issues. Behavioral issues. My well-behaved, polite children who never caused problems at family gatherings had behavioral issues. "There's more," Sarah continued reluctantly. "Diana suggested that maybe this year the focus should be on the easier grandchildren since Madison and Tyler are at such a fun age for Christmas magic." The easier grandchildren? My children had been categorized as difficult and written off. "Sarah, are you sure about this?" "I recorded it," she said quietly. I was so shocked by what they were saying that I started recording partway through. "Do you want me to send it to you?" That recording changed everything. But you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself here, and I can see some of you are as fired up as I was that night. If you're feeling that mama bear rage building up, smash that like button because we're about to get into the real revenge part of this story. And trust me, what I did next was absolutely justified. Make sure you're subscribed, because the confrontation that's coming will have you cheering. Now let's talk about how I turned their own words against them. The recording Sarah sent me was devastating. 43 minutes of my family discussing my children like they were burdens to be managed, rather than beloved grandchildren. I listened to it 3 times, taking notes, my anger crystallizing into something far more dangerous: determination. My mother's voice came through. Clearly, Celeste has always been oversensitive, but it's gotten worse since she had kids. Everything has to be about accommodating Iris and Jasper's special needs. Special needs. My children had food allergies and age-appropriate emotional responses to being excluded. Somehow, this had been twisted into them being problematic. Diana's contribution was even worse. Honestly, family gatherings are so much more relaxed when it's just Madison and Tyler. They're grateful for attention instead of expecting it as a given. And they don't have meltdowns when things don't go their way. Meltdowns. My children had never had meltdowns at family gatherings. They internalized their hurt and became quieter, which apparently was preferable to my family because it was less inconvenient. But the most revealing comment came from my father. "Maybe we should plan the main Christmas celebration for when Celeste's family is visiting Marcus's parents. Then we can really focus on making it magical for the kids who appreciate it." They were literally planning to exclude us from Christmas. The conversation included detailed discussions about gift budgets. Madison and Tyler were getting tablets and bikes while my children merited something small since they wouldn't notice the difference anyway. There was talk of a family cruise being planned for spring break with concerns about whether Iris and Jasper would complain about the food or need constant supervision. Most damning was Diana's casual comment. "I've been telling Mom and Dad for years that Celeste expects too much special treatment. Her kids aren't any more special than anyone else's, but she acts like they deserve red carpet treatment just for existing." Red carpet treatment. Like being asked what they wanted for dinner was some kind of extraordinary accommodation. I spent the next few days in planning mode. Marcus was fully on board. Hearing his children discussed like inconvenient obligations had awakened something protective and furious in him too. We decided our response needed to be strategic, documented, and devastating. First, I compiled everything. Screenshots of dismissive texts, recorded phone calls, Sarah's recording, and a detailed timeline of exclusionary incidents over the past 3 years. The pattern was undeniable when laid out chronologically. Then I started making calls, not to my immediate family. They'd had their chance to treat my children fairly. Instead, I reached out to extended family members, the ones who only saw us at major holidays, and might not have realized what was happening. Aunt Rebecca, my mother's sister, was my first call. "Celeste, how lovely to hear from you. How are those beautiful babies? Actually, Aunt Rebecca, that's why I'm calling. I need to tell you about something that's been happening in our family." I laid it out methodically. The favoritism, the exclusion, the secret planning to minimize my children's participation in family events. I played her selected portions of the recordings, letting her hear Diana's casual cruelty and my parents' dismissive attitude in their own words. The silence on the other end was profound. "Celeste," she finally said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I had no idea. I noticed Diana's kids seemed to get a lot of attention, but I thought that was just because they were more outgoing. That's what I thought too, for years. But it's deliberate, Aunt Rebecca. They're planning Christmas without us because my children are too much trouble. That's unconscionable. Those babies are family. They're blood." I made similar calls to my father's siblings, to family friends who'd known us for decades, to anyone who might have influence or insight. The response was universally shock and anger. Several people mentioned noticing favoritism, but assuming it was unintentional or temporary. Uncle Mike, my father's brother, was particularly upset. "Your dad used to talk about how proud he was to have 4 grandchildren. When did this change? Apparently it's been building for years, but they finally decided to say the quiet part out loud." By the end of the week, I had allies. People who'd grown up with my parents, who remembered them as fair and loving, were now questioning what had happened to make them treat their own grandchildren so differently. But I wasn't done. The family cruise Diana had mentioned was being planned through a group chat that included several extended family members. I reached out to them individually. "Hey, Cousin Jamie, I heard about the family cruise being planned. It sounds amazing. When were you thinking of going?" "Oh, it's still in early planning stages. Your mom and Diana are organizing it." "I thought you knew about it. This is actually the first I'm hearing about it. Could you add me to the planning chat?" The awkward pause told me everything. Let me check with them about that." "Or don't," I said pleasantly. "I'll just ask them directly." That evening, I called my mother. "Hi, Mom. I heard about the family cruise you're planning. It sounds wonderful." Another telling pause. "Oh, we're still in very early planning stages. Nothing's set in stone. I'd love to help plan it." Iris and Jasper would be so excited about their first cruise. "Well, we're looking at dates that might not work for everyone's schedules. What dates are you considering? We're pretty flexible." The conversation continued, with my mother making increasingly desperate excuses about why this cruise might not work for my family. Finally, she admitted they'd been looking at times when we'd be unavailable. "So you planned it specifically for when we couldn't come?" "Not specifically, no. It's just that coordinating 4 families is complicated, and Diana suggested that it would be easier without us there." "Celeste, you're putting words in my mouth." "Am I?" "Because I have Diana's exact words about how family gatherings are more relaxed without my children there." The silence stretched between us. "I think we need to have a family meeting," I said finally. "All of us. This Sunday." "I don't think that's necessary." "It's necessary, Mom. Because right now, extended family members are calling me in shock about things they're hearing." "Do you want this to be a private family discussion?" Or would you prefer to have these conversations with Aunt Rebecca and Uncle Mike separately? That got her attention. What do you mean? I mean, people are starting to notice how my children are treated and they're not comfortable with it. We can handle this as a family, or it can become a much bigger conversation involving people outside our immediate circle. It was a gentle threat, but a threat nonetheless. Fix this privately or watch your reputation crumble publicly. Sunday at 2, she said finally. We'll all be there. Sunday arrived with the weight of years of suppressed frustration behind it. I dressed carefully, professional but not intimidating, confident but not aggressive. Marcus wore his best shirt, the one that made him look like the successful architect he was. We wanted to look like the reasonable, stable family. We were not the dramatic troublemakers we'd been painted as. Iris and Jasper stayed home with Marcus's mother, who'd been horrified when we told her what was happening. Those babies, she'd said, shaking her head. How could anyone treat such sweet children so differently? We arrived at my parents' house precisely at 2. Diana was already there with Madison and Tyler, who immediately ran to hug us. Children are honest in their affection. They don't play the political games adults do. Where are Iris and Jasper? Madison asked. They're spending the day with Grandma Linda, I said, avoiding the real answer that I wasn't subjecting them to this confrontation. The living room felt different, somehow charged with tension. My parents sat on their usual spots on the couch, but their posture was defensive. Diana perched on the edge of an armchair, looking like she was ready to bolt. So my father said with forced joviality, "What's this meeting about?" I pulled out my phone and set it on the coffee table. I'm going to record this conversation for clarity. Is that really necessary? Diana asked. Given how differently we seem to remember previous conversations, yes. I started the recording and stated the date, time, and attendees for the record. Then I looked around the room at these people I'd loved my entire life. We're here because my children are being systematically excluded from this family, and it needs to stop. Celeste, my mother started. Please let me finish. I have documentation of patterns of favoritism and exclusion spanning 3 years. I have recordings of family members discussing my children as if they're burdens to be managed rather than grandchildren to be loved. And I have evidence of events being planned specifically to exclude my family. I pulled out printed copies of my timeline and handed them around. Dates, incidents, patterns of behavior all laid out in black and white. This is ridiculous, Diana said, barely glancing at the papers. You're making mountains out of molehills. Am I then explain this? I played a portion of Sarah's recording, the part where Diana talked about family gatherings being more relaxed without my children there. The color drained from Diana's face. Where did you get that? That's not the relevant question. The relevant question is whether you said it. That was taken out of context. What context makes it acceptable to say that family gatherings are better without your niece and nephew present? My father cleared his throat. Now, girls, don't. I turned to him. Don't now girls us. This isn't a sisterly squabble. This is about how you've treated your grandchildren. I played another section of the recording, the part about planning Christmas without us because my children were too difficult. My mother was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone caught in wrongdoing who was sorry about the consequences, not the actions. We never meant for it to seem like favoritism, she said. But it is favoritism. The question is whether it's conscious or unconscious. It's not favoritism, Diana snapped. Madison and Tyler are just easier to be around. They don't have all these special requirements and sensitivities. What special requirements? What sensitivities? The food allergies, the constant need for reassurance, the way they shut down when things don't go their way. Diana, Marcus's voice was quiet but dangerous. My children have food allergies they didn't choose. They need reassurance because they're children being excluded by their family. And they shut down because they're processing emotional pain that's being inflicted on them by the adults who should be protecting them. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Diana threw her hands up. Everything has to be analyzed and psychologized with you two. Sometimes kids are just kids and you can't treat them like delicate flowers. We treat them like children who deserve the same consideration their cousins receive automatically. The same consideration Madison and Tyler don't get, special consideration. They get normal treatment. Exactly, I said quietly. That's exactly the problem. What you call normal treatment for Madison and Tyler, you consider special treatment for Iris and Jasper. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. My father tried to regain control. Look, maybe we all need to take a step back. Families have dynamics, and sometimes Dad, stop. Just stop. I was tired of the deflection, tired of the gaslighting, tired of watching my children learn that their worth was negotiable. I need to know right now, are you willing to treat all 4 of your grandchildren equally? Of course we are, my mother said quickly. Then prove it. Christmas is in 6 weeks. I want equal gift budgets, equal consideration and planning, equal attention during celebrations. I want my children asked their preferences first, sometimes included in group photos prominently, and treated like the valued family members they are. That seems reasonable, my father said. And the family cruise? Silence. Either we're all invited or you need to stop calling it a family cruise, because excluding half the grandchildren makes it something else entirely. The cruise was just an idea, my mother said weakly. An idea that you planned around our absence. An idea that was specifically designed to celebrate the easier grandchildren. Diana stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. You're twisting everything to make yourself the victim. Sit down, I said firmly. We're not done. Yes, we are. Come on, kids. She started gathering Madison and Tyler. Actually, Diana, we're not done. Because I need you to understand something very clearly. I stood up too, and I was taller than her. If this pattern of favoritism continues, my children won't be exposed to it anymore. That means no more family dinners, no more holidays, no more pretending that subtle emotional abuse is normal family dynamics. Emotional abuse, my mother gasped. Celeste, that's going too far. Is it, what do you call systematically making children feel less valued than their cousins? What do you call planning family events around their absence? What do you call discussing them like they're inconvenient obligations rather than beloved family members? We're trying our best, my father said. No, you're not. You're trying to avoid accountability while maintaining the status quo that's comfortable for you. I gathered my things and headed toward the door. You have a choice to make. You can treat all 4 of your grandchildren fairly, or you can have relationships with 2 of them. But you can't have both anymore. As Marcus and I reached the door, my mother called out desperately, Celeste, please, don't take the children away over this. I turned back one final time. I'm not taking them away. I'm protecting them from people who've made it clear they're not wanted. The drive home was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than before. This was the quiet of a decision made, a line drawn, a boundary established. That evening, I called extended family members who'd been supportive and updated them on the meeting. The response was unanimous. They were proud of me for standing up for my children, and they were disappointed in my parents and Diana for letting it reach this point. Uncle Mike called my father that night. Aunt Rebecca called my mother. Family friends who'd heard about the situation began weighing in. The private family drama I'd been told to handle quietly became exactly the kind of public scrutiny my mother had always feared. But I wasn't done yet. There was still the matter of Christmas and whether my family would step up or continue down their chosen path. The weeks following our confrontation were telling. My mother called daily at first, alternating between tearful apologies and frustrated justifications. Diana stopped speaking to me entirely, which honestly felt like a relief. My father tried his usual approach of pretending nothing had happened and suggesting we all move forward. But the real test came with Christmas planning. 2 weeks after our meeting, my mother called with an update. We've been thinking about what you said and we want to make this Christmas special for everyone, okay? What does that look like specifically? Well, we're planning a lovely dinner and we thought the kids could exchange gifts. The same vague promises I'd heard before. No specifics, no acknowledgement of the problems I'd outlined, no concrete changes. Mom, what's the gift budget for each child? Oh, we don't really have a strict budget. We just buy what feels right. What feels right for Madison and Tyler, or what feels right for all four kids? Celeste, you're being very difficult about this. And there it was again. My reasonable requests for equal treatment being characterized as difficult behavior. I'm being clear about my expectations. If you can't meet them, that's fine. We'll make our own Christmas plans. You can't be serious about keeping the children away from Christmas. I'm serious about not subjecting them to another holiday where they're treated as afterthoughts. That conversation ended badly, but it prompted something interesting. Extended family members started reaching out to ask about our Christmas plans. Word had spread about the family rift and people were taking sides. Aunt Rebecca called to invite us to Christmas dinner at her house. I've talked to Mike and Janet and we're all appalled by what's been happening. We want Iris and Jasper to know they're loved and wanted. Similar invitations came from Uncle Mike, from family, friends, from people who'd heard the story and wanted to make sure my children felt valued. It was overwhelming and wonderful and healing all at once. But the biggest vindication came from an unexpected source. 3 weeks before Christmas, I got a call from Madison. She was crying. Aunt Celeste, I need to tell you something. My heart clenched. What is it, sweetheart? Mom and Grandma were talking and they said some mean things about Iris and Jasper. I think you should know. It turned out that Diana had been coaching Madison and Tyler to be less affectionate toward my children, telling them that Iris and Jasper were sensitive and needed to be handled carefully rather than treated normally. She'd also told them that our family probably wouldn't be coming to Christmas because I was being dramatic. I don't think Iris and Jasper are too sensitive, Madison said tearfully. I think grown-ups are being mean to them. Tyler thinks so too. Out of the mouths of babes? An 8-year-old could see what the adults refused to acknowledge. Madison, you're a very smart and kind girl. Thank you for telling me. Are you really not coming to Christmas? Would you like us to come? Yes, it's not Christmas without Iris and Jasper. They're my cousins too. That conversation changed everything. I realized I'd been so focused on protecting my children from rejection that I hadn't considered the impact our absence would have on Madison and Tyler, who loved their cousins and didn't understand why the adults were creating division. I called my mother one last time. We'll come to Christmas under specific conditions. Equal gifts for all 4 children. I want to see receipts. Equal treatment throughout the day. No favoritism in activities, photos, or attention. And if Diana makes any disparaging comments about my children, we leave immediately. Those seem like reasonable requests, my mother said carefully. They're not requests, Mom. They're requirements. Christmas morning revealed everything I needed to know about my family's capacity for change. The gifts were equal in number, but not in thoughtfulness or expense. Madison and Tyler received tablets and bikes as planned. Iris and Jasper received generic toys, clearly bought at the last minute. The tablets cost $300 each. I know because I checked the model numbers. The toys my children received cost maybe $20 each. I didn't say anything in the moment. Christmas morning wasn't the time for confrontation with all the children present, but I documented everything. Photos of the gifts, notes about interactions, recordings of conversations. The final straw came during Christmas dinner. Diana, emboldened by what she probably thought was my silence, made a comment about Iris barely touching her food. Some children are just pickier eaters, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Madison and Tyler eat everything we put in front of them. Iris, my sensitive 7-year-old, looked stricken. She'd been eating carefully because several dishes contained ingredients she was allergic to, something the family knew but had ignored in their meal planning. Actually, I said pleasantly, Iris is being careful because half this meal could send her to the hospital. But thank you for that observation, Diana. The table went silent. We're leaving, I announced, standing up. Kids, get your coats. Celeste, please, my mother begged. It's Christmas. Yes, it is. And my children deserve to spend it somewhere they're valued. We drove directly to Aunt Rebecca's house, where we were welcomed with genuine warmth and thoughtful gifts that had clearly been chosen with my children's interests in mind. Iris and Jasper spent the rest of Christmas Day laughing and playing with cousins who were excited to see them. That night, as I tucked my children into bed, Jasper asked the question I'd been dreading. Mama, why don't Grandma and Grandpa love us as much as Madison and Tyler? I chose honesty. They do love you, baby, but they don't always show it in ways that make you feel loved. And that's not okay. Are we not going to see them anymore? Not until they learn how to treat you the way you deserve to be treated. That was 6 months ago. My parents have reached out occasionally, but always with the same pattern. Vague promises of change without specific commitments, followed by hurt feelings when I ask for concrete examples of how things will be different. Diana and I haven't spoken since Christmas. I hear through extended family that she's been telling people I'm alienating the children and being vindictive. The irony isn't lost on me. But here's the thing about standing up to family bullies. Sometimes you lose relationships that weren't really healthy to begin with. My children are thriving without the constant subtle message that their worth is conditional. They're more confident, more secure, and more trusting in relationships where they are consistently valued. Extended family has rallied around us in ways I never expected. Holidays are actually enjoyable now. My children look forward to family gatherings instead of dreading them. And Marcus and I have grown stronger as a team, united in protecting our children and refusing to accept that's just how family is, as an excuse for emotional harm. The most satisfying part, last month I heard through Uncle Mike that Madison had asked her mother why Iris and Jasper never come to family dinners anymore. When Diana gave some excuse about us being busy, Madison apparently said, "That's not true. Aunt Celeste told me you guys were mean to them." Even an 8-year-old could see through the gaslighting. So, here's my question for all of you who've made it this far. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and protecting your children? Have you faced that moment where family loyalty conflicts with basic fairness? Because, let me tell you, choosing your kids over toxic family dynamics is terrifying and liberating and absolutely worth it. Drop a comment and tell me about your own family drama. Did karma come for the people who wronged you? Did you get your justice served moment? And if you're currently dealing with family favoritism, know that you're not crazy. You're not overreacting, and your children's emotional well-being is more important than keeping toxic people comfortable. Hit that like button if this story fired you up, subscribe for more real-life drama with satisfying endings, and share this with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to demand better treatment for your children. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, family isn't just about blood. It's about love, respect, and treating each other with basic human dignity. When that's missing, it's okay to create chosen family with people who actually value you. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to accept less than you deserve and building a better life without the people who couldn't appreciate what they had. Trust me, the peace that comes with that choice is worth every uncomfortable conversation and every relationship you have to leave behind.